Good morning. So today is a cloudy, rainy day. It feels good to be inside. And my plans for today, going to have like nothing, else to do. So I'll be focusing a lot on my writing. I do have stuff to do more, towards like the end of the day. But until then, I'm going to, I'll be writing. I'm excited about that, and I hope I can get into like a good return. Have a good pace pace myself so that I'm making progress. It's been a little while, like a few days since I wrote anything because I've been busy, a lot of like things to do and places to be. But today is Monday, I'm back on track and I'm going to hopefully make some progress. I don't know if I'm just going to go with the flow and like right where I am, or if I'm going to try to do that thing that I mentioned that I would want to do, which is kind of which to kind of like find a chapter, and try to finish it like that. I think that I might try to do it. I think like adding this particular goal is, I don't know, I think it shifts something in your mindset because I do want to finish, conclude this novel. And I am, like am I making good progress. And I think that as of right now, like my goal to, have it finish it, by June, like I think is very doable. And I'm kind of like excited about where I'm going. I'm also excited about like book 4, but I had to finish, 3 first. But yeah, I think I have, that's kind of like going to be a thing for me this week. I want to write, and I do have stuff to do. Friday is my birthday, but I'm going to celebrate on the 23rd, which is Sunday, and I'm going to have a 26th celebration, for my Zumba class, and I do want to, next Sunday, I got a coupon from Outback Steakhouse. I want to go there. It's going to be a little gift to myself. I'm going to go. I have like, I have 2 coupons, one for, the onion and the other one for dessert. I don't know if I can use both in the same purchase, but, like it is, I'll see. Let's see if like that's possible. But yeah, so I do have some events coming, and they all have to do with food. We're gonna go visit my aunt and my cousin, like in the city she lives. And it is like, I think it's technically considered to be like the metropolitan area of my town, but like there's going to be eating there, so lots of eating. But I'm doing my exercises, beyond, besides my Zumba classes and my swimming. And I mentioned I'm going to do it from Sunday to Sunday, so even in the weekends I'll be doing it. I have my little machine, and I already, did it for today, so things are, working out well. Also like my orange project, I've already had an orange, and I think that after I'm done with this video, I'm going to have another one because I'm starting to feel like I want to eat something. I had a spoonful of, Nutella, and, a couple of, chips from, the Pringles, the black Pringles can. And, so I kind of like want, as I mentioned before, oranges are the way to go. So, I mean, definitely, like, there's probably less sugar in that, but, like, I don't have issues with sugar, so it's okay. But yeah, but I'm excited about, this week. Tomorrow I'm going to the movies, in the evening. So we'll watch, Now You See Me, Now You Don't, the third movie in the Now You See Me, right so far trilogy. And I'm excited about it because I really like those movies. You can almost call them, I call them like comfort movies that I watch. And I kind of like thought that, like that this project would be lost in development hell. So it is interesting that it finally happened, and it gives me hope that if this movie does well, they're gonna have another one, because this is a series. There's some series that I can just watch, movies, like their movies always like the Oceans. Like there's the trilogy and then there's Ocean's 8. Like I really like that too. I can always watch them. They're fun. And that's kind of like what I want from movies. I think it's important for you to have this more introspective, historically relevant, movies talking about, real things and, going a little deeper. But fun movies, they also have a place. And I think that most of the time when I'm going for movies, like I want, to enjoy myself. I want to have a good time. So, I'm happy that this franchise is alive and well. And hopefully, as I said, we're gonna get the next one. I'm gonna keep watching them. Oh, The Fast and Furious is a good example. Like those movies, I don't know if anybody would call them, cinema or call them great, but they can just release as many as they want because I'm gonna go and watch it. It's just such a fun time. They're silly, and honestly, like they're like in movie 10, and my favorite character of like this franchise just appeared. So like that was exciting for me. I loved Jason Momoa in that movie. It was so fun, and it's exactly it's what I didn't know that I wanted from like the franchise. But yeah, but enough about movies and my life and my goals. What I wanted to talk about today is fear. It's about one fear that has specifically had me to do a certain group of people. I don't want to explicitly say who, because I think that I'll be able to talk more freely if I'm just mentioning like this group of people. So I'm gonna be saying a lot of them, so like in reference to that. But basically, I kind of like came to the conclusion the other day. Was it Saturday? Was it yesterday? And then yesterday I had the exam, the national exam, just to conclude that, and it was like natural sciences and math. Math, I think I did well, because at first it was natural sciences, and that is one that I'm going to have the lowest grade, because it involves like a lot of like knowledge that it's been almost a decade since I graduated high school, so like I don't remember a lot of like that stuff, the formulas and how to carry on. So like I know that is going to be the worst grade that I had, which has also been the case lately, because it's something that you can kind of like logically assume, like I think I did well, but sometimes they want specific pieces of knowledge that I no longer have. But then you have math. I started out pretty great, because a lot of math, like it is just logic, like so those questions or just like kind of like not basic math, but like you being able, they ask you a lot of like things from yeah, the things that like even if I don't remember the formulas, I can still kind of like figure out. So that is usually, so I think like languages and math are the ones that I do the best. There are some questions that like you have to remember specific formulas, and I didn't really remember them, so like I didn't do as well. But I would say that I kind of crashed out at some point. Like I started out like pretty great, and pretty not great, but like pretty confident. Like I would have an answer, see an answer, and I'll be like, yes, this is the answer I'm going with, and I would just Google and move on. But like with math, like there was a point where my brain wasn't braining. I was kind of like struggling to concentrate and to reason, which is important for these questions. So there's definitely there's probably like some 5 questions that 5 out of 45 that I could have gotten the right answer, and then maybe I did not because I was struggling to think. And also like last Sunday when I had the exam, I basically like I was ready, like I was waiting for an hour so I can leave with like the little notebook with the questions. And then this time around, like I basically finished like as like a couple of minutes before like the time was up, and yeah, so that was like an interesting experience. I didn't go and check like how I did yet. I might do this today, but I don't know, like it doesn't matter the results. Maybe I'm kind of like scared that I went that my performance was worse than what I had anticipated, although as I said, like the natural science one, I already knew that it wouldn't be my best because it required like a lot of things that I don't remember, but like I was able to do well in math. Right now, like I think that historically, like the 2 of the 3 courses that I have, the things I try to major on, I mean like they were engineering, so like you had to do well in math, and I kind of did, but right now, like I'm moving away from STEM, which is in itself kind of like huge for me. That indicates a lot of progress, because for the longest time I was like I had to be in STEM. This is where my fate is. Like I really wanted to be an engineer, but not because I wanted to necessarily work in the area, but I think I wanted like the title of engineer. And like right now I'm like, what, I'm gonna try something else. I'm going to see where this journey takes me, and that kind of like involves me not necessarily it involves so like because all 4 like languages, math, natural science, and the human sciences, plus the essay, like they all that your grade is based on like them. But naturally some courses like they require more in some areas, so like your grade is going to be kind of like basically the same, but it varies a little bit. So it kind of like sucks that, because like as I said, like math is one of like my better subjects, so like that having doing well there will not necessarily have like as much of an impact. But languages, as I said, like things work out great. But yeah, just back to fear. So basically, what I was saying is that I kind of like realized that there's a lot of fear that comes from certain things happening and certain ideologies, certain mindsets, and sometimes it feels like things are getting worse. Because these ideas, they are more they're widespread sometimes, and sometimes it's hard for you to think of a solution, think of somewhere to go from there. And I mean, mostly like my strategy has to be mostly ignoring like those things, like not thinking too much about them, and not creating situations in my life where I'm thinking about them. But it's kind of hard sometimes, because these things, they just pop up in your life, and you don't really have full control of what happens around you. You can kind of like foster an environment where certain things they're less likely to show up, to happen. But and that was like a strategy that I had for the longest time. And like I do think there's merit there, because I think I was very traumatized, too many triggers. So like those situations were making things worse. But like lately, I've been able to withstand a certain amount of exposure to those ideas. So I'm able to kind of like keep on living my life without the weight of like those ideologies and those mindsets kind of like dragging me down. So it is an interesting thing for me to consider, that like maybe I'm starting to get so like there was overexposure, there was complete absence, and now I'm like somewhere in the middle. Because as I said, like you're going to have to deal with these things. So like you can't freeze, or you can attack, you can like he hit heads first, with a lot of like these mentalities. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I think that I felt like I was supposed to combat, whenever I witnessed something. And like now I'm like, I don't want you to do that, and it's my right. Of course, then like you can argue that I have the moral responsibility of presenting ideas and denouncing certain things, and I think that that is very valid. But thankfully for me, I'm not like I'm not making that much of a difference on things. It's just so like if I miss something, I'm like if I overlook something, nothing, like me not doing that wouldn't change anything, because people, they're set in their ways, and unless they want to change, you can put all the time and effort into making sure that things that you get your point of view out there. But as I said, unless people want to, it's kind of like pointless. But I do think it has to do with like the expression of my relevance. I'm not saying this is a negative thing, but like my reach, it's quite limited. And like, so I think like half the people I interact with, we're like on the same page, and the other half we're not, but we're not really talking about those things. So like it gives you a certain idea, like gives you a false sense of comfort, because like you're not being exposed to those realities, but like that's pretty much what is underneath. So it's kind of hard, like finding a good balance of you kind of like ignoring things, but also bringing light to certain subjects or certain ideas, pointing out the flaws in certain arguments, and just overall trying to expose like the best way to go about things. Because it's not that I think that I'm like inherently right, but the things that are important to me, because that sometimes that's the difference between what's happening, because something's important to you but it's not important to other people. And then there's the argument that like it should matter, we should all follow certain guidelines, and like observe certain standards. But not everybody is going to think that way. And I do think that they're wrong. I do think that certain things matter, and that we should like pay attention to them. But you can't really change people's minds, as I said, like if they're not willing to change, because you can make all the best arguments, like you can voice the most logical or reasonable of arguments. But if the person, because a lot of times people, they are motivated by feelings, and by like their worldview, and so like they're not going to value the things that you have to say, because to them like those things don't matter. And that's kind of like the struggle, like making people realize that things are wrong, and that things matter, and that there are unfairness and injustice happening that should be all of our concerns to fix, to do better. But as I said, and I know I sound a little defeatist, and I think that there is some of it, but I don't feel like hopeless or helpless, which I think is an important thing, because like this, the way that the world is, the way that things work, how things are working, like it can like lead to you feeling like there's nothing that ever doomed, that there's nothing that we can do. But so I'm not there. I think that there are ways to go, but I think you have to acknowledge that things are bad, that things are not working out, and that kind of scares me. I guess this is the point I'm trying to make, that some of these people, like I have historically felt uncomfortable in their being around them, because of the implicit ideas that they are like ideology is scary. And I think that a lot of like anger has happened, but this anger is kind of like based on fear. I'm scared of losing my rights, I'm scared of losing my place, I'm scared of like no longer having a voice, which very reasonable things for you to be scared of. But I think I didn't want to acknowledge those feelings for the longest time because in my head, like I had, to have this autonomy, this independence, and I needed like not to care or not to care about what people think, but also I needed not to need, somebody else, and not to need, yeah, like not to need things to and not to depend on people, like to make, because that is a lie. A lot of people I know believe this because I know that like everything was within my control to accomplish, and that's just not how things work. There's so many variables, so many things happen that you're not in control. There is like luck, because and this is something that is kind of like complicated because a lot of people don't want to acknowledge like their luck or their privilege that led to them being a certain point, kind of like get to a certain point. And like I understand the feeling, like you feel like you acknowledge that there was luck, or like you had a different head start, you kind of like evaluate what they've been able to accomplish. But like those two things those things happen simultaneously. Like you need these circumstances to align, and you need like you need, yeah, things to align. Like you need certain things to work out that it might not work out. And sometimes the reason why, like, it's not something, a lot of time, it's something that you can control. So I understand people feeling like, like they don't want to acknowledge that things just, sometimes happen, and there was this element that was out of their control, like that allowed them to succeed in the way they did. But that is just how life, happens. And I think that this particular mindset, it kind of like it leads to things, not really to people, it changes the way that they see the world, because they're kind of like scared, to admit that things are not within their control. And like that leads to some reactive actions and things that people they say and they do. And there's nothing wrong, I guess, like with feeling that way, but it's about how you behave according to that. And that's an interesting one. How exactly do you exactly how do you overcome like your fears? And I think there's a level of exposure that comes with the territory, but you have to make sure that like you don't have certain, because there can be some triggers, and like those, they can be to like that attempt being worse, living more worse than like you started. So I think that like a good way is therapy, because like there you have a controlled environment where with a professional, somebody who can make sure that that doesn't happen. But it is hard, like overcoming things. And like, talking about fear, back to my fear, so as I said, like there was this discomfort and also this fear that I had, and like my fears are valid, my feelings are valid, but I can't let those situations, dictate how I behave, how I, carry myself, because there are things I want to do, there are places I want to go to, and I, need to no longer should not be vulnerable, to the point that like things happen and they completely destroy my mental health. As I mentioned, like lately, I've been doing pretty well. I've been able to withstand, the exposure to certain ideas and certain things that like I disagree with. Because the thing about disagreeing with people is that everybody's allowed to have their opinion, but some opinions are kind of harmful, to different groups of people, to the environment, for example. So like there is harm there. So like I think that everybody's allowed to have their opinion, but when you start acting on that, like it can be tricky, because you're yeah, that's the thing. Like you kind of like do whatever you want, but as long as you're not harming others or yourself, I think that is fine. But the moment that you cross the line, then like it is a complicated thing, to kind of like engage with, because how exactly, like, because you don't want necessarily like a higher power to dictate that, because like usually these higher powers, they can be bent any other way people want to, and they can be used to justify things, and it is what it is, like that is the reality, that there's harm is going to come from things that people think and do. Once again, like you can think whatever you want, but like your actions, I think that like your actions, you can kind of like intervene if things happen. For example, crime, like if you commit a crime, like we all agree that there is a system to rehabilitate and punish like those actions. So I think that everybody, one way or another, some people probably don't agree, but there are certain things that we can agree on, that they are that there should be an intervention. naturally, like the problem is like how do you define this? Because just like anything else, like a system, can be exploited, it can be bent any other way. So how do you make things fair? And that's hard. Like fairness is one of those things that I think we all agree is important, but like in practice, there's so many ways in which you can, like things can be skewed, certain way. But yeah, but here back to me. So I basically, I've been kind of like acknowledging, like these fears that I have, and I think that by acknowledging them, I had a little notepad, and I was just basically writing sometimes repeatedly, like that I was, afraid that I was, that I was feeling the feelings I was having, and I think that it was very helpful. I think that by doing this, I'm kind of like disarming, this bomb in my head that was ready to, because it's not that, because the harm and the possibilities that I was afraid of, they're still there. They haven't changed. Like those things are still possible. But as I said, like I don't want, like that to inform how I behave, how I kind of like carry myself. And yes, I think I'm disarming something, like kind of like, I'm addressing a certain fear, and like this is working out great for me because I'm feeling increasingly more at peace, which is kind of like what I want. I want to be joyous, but for me to get to that point, I have to be at peace, and that is a trickier journey than you can kind of like imagine, but it is doable. That's I think the important thing. I think it's important for me to feel like things are doable, because I think for so long I like if I have this defeatist attitude, what can happen is that I end up like being demotivated to continue existing. So it's good that I'm saying this is bad, but there's a way out, or as I said, like me feeling better about this doesn't change reality. Things are still the same, but I'm not going to be overwhelmed by this negative situations, these negative possibilities, and that is pretty much what I want right now. I want I'm disarming this particular vulnerability, like this particular trigger, and then in the future there's going to be more things to disarm, and like it is very refreshing, and it's very I feel very light, by kind of like disengaging from certain fears, and that is the journey I want to pursue. And yeah, so I'm still afraid, but I think I'm less afraid now. I'm still, because you can be concerned about something and not be afraid. So I think that is like the area I want to walk. Okay, I'm still going to be concerned about these things because it's important, and if you're not concerned, you don't have any type of action to prevent certain things from happening, then those things are going to happen. But it is very telling that I don't know, that things are getting easier for me right now, that I'm not letting things like drag me down, and like I've come a long way, but I still have a long way to go. And this situation kind of like it affirms to me that like I'm on my way, which though I can kind of like hope for. So anyways, bye.